John woke up early every morning, his body trained to the rhythms of the farm. He started his day with a cup of strong coffee and a few slices of buttered toast before heading outside to tend to his animals. He fed the cows and cleaned out their stalls. He checked on the pigs, making sure they had enough food and water. He spent hours in the fields, planting and harvesting crops, repairing fences, and mending machinery. As night came, John retreated to his small, cozy farmhouse. He cooked himself a hearty meal, read the newspaper, and then retired to bed, exhausted but content. This was his life, his routine, and he loved it. But one night, everything changed. John was awoken by a bright light outside his window. At first, he thought it was a car's headlights, but the light was too intense, too otherworldly. As he got up to investigate, he suddenly felt dizzy, disoriented. The next thing he knew, he was levitating in midair, his body weightless. His eyes widened in dread as he took in his surroundings. When he turned to look around, he realized he had been placed in an extraterrestrial spacecraft and that the aliens within were unlike any he had ever encountered. Their lengthy, humanoid bodies were covered in a shimmering, iridescent material that seemed to morph and shift with each motion. They spoke to him, but their language was incomprehensible. He tried to move, but he was paralyzed, unable to control his own body. The aliens appeared anxious, agitated, and driven by some pressing need. They probed his body with their unusual gadgets, looking for something. John's mind was racing. Was he dreaming? Was this some kind of hallucination? But the more he looked around, the more real everything seemed. The aliens' movements were too precise, their technology too advanced. As the night wore on, John began to notice small inconsistencies. The air inside the spacecraft was too thin, too sterile. The aliens' behavior was too erratic, too unpredictable. He was then startled by his own reflection. What he saw was deeply disturbing. His body was changing. His fingers were elongating, his skin turning a sickly shade of green. He was becoming like them. Suddenly, the spacecraft shuddered, and the aliens began to panic. John felt himself being pulled towards the hatch, towards the darkness beyond. But he fought back, struggling against their grip. And then, with a sudden jolt, he was back in his own bed, the light outside his window fading away. John sat up, gasping for air. He looked around, his heart pounding. It had all felt so real, so vivid. But now, he couldn't be sure if it had actually happened. As the days went by, John tried to convince himself that it had all been a dream, a figment of his imagination. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed, that he was different somehow. And as he looked around his farm, he began to notice strange things happening. The weather patterns were off, with unseasonably hot days and violent storms. His animals were agitated, refusing to eat or drink. And then, there was the farmhouse itself. It seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, as if something was trying to break free from within. John tried to ignore these signs, but they continued to haunt him, creeping into his mind like a nightmare. And then, one day, as he was repairing a fence, he saw something glinting in the dirt. It was a small, metallic object, unlike anything he had ever seen before. He picked it up, turning it over in his hands, and then he realized it was a piece of the spacecraft. The realization hit him like a wave, and he knew then that it had all been real.